All right. The San Francisco 49ers have made a trade, according to Adam Schefter of ESPN. The Washington Commanders are trading running back Brian Robinson Jr. to the 49ers in exchange for a 2026 sixth-round pick. And this is pretty interesting, I think, for the 49ers for a few different reasons. And I think it obviously makes sense. You look at the injuries to Christian McCaffrey's backups in Isaac Guerrero, who's dealing with a shoulder injury, who just returned to practice this week. Rookie Jordan James, the fifth-round pick from Oregon, has been on the shelf seemingly throughout camp, had surgery to repair a broken finger recently. He has not yet returned to practice. There hasn't been a timetable for his return. So going into week one, against the Seattle Seahawks, the 49ers healthy running backs, it look like there'll be Christian McCaffrey and then a bunch of question marks. And of course, you had undrafted rookie running back Corey Kiner have a high ankle sprain. The 49ers injured him. Nobody claimed him. He reverted to injured reserve. Maybe he comes back at some point midway through the season. So you have obvious depth issues at running back. So the 49ers needed to get another running back there. But what's interesting about Brian Robinson is he's been a starting caliber running back for Washington. He started 25 games the last 2 years. He's had over 2,000 scrimmage yards in those last 2 years. He has 17 total touchdowns in those last 2 years. Like, this is not the equivalent of getting Sky Moore in a trade for the Chiefs from the Chiefs. This is somebody that is an actual insurance policy should Christian McCaffrey miss time because of injury. This isn't, this is the Niners needed. To me, this isn't like the Niners need more depth because of Isaac Guerrero. You're uncertain about Isaac Guerrero or you're uncertain about Jordan James. This is, if Christian McCaffrey has to miss time, you have a starting running back in the stable who you could play, and there wouldn't be this massive drop-off. And you wouldn't be relying on question marks like Isaac Guerrero and Jordan James behind Christian McCaffrey. So I really like this move for the 49ers. He's on the last year of his contract. It's a 2026 sixth-round pick. The 49ers, obviously in the offseason, traded Jordan Mason to the Minnesota Vikings. They got a fifth-round pick. That pick turned out to be Marquise Siegel, the safety from Kansas State, who looks like he's at least competing to start and might even win a starting job this year. So I would say that trade in the aggregate has been positive for the 49ers. And then turning around and getting Brian Robinson Jr., who I think is a better player than Jordan Mason for a sixth-round pick in the aggregate is a win for the 49ers, I think. So what the 49ers have now going into week one, yes, they're extremely banged up at receiver. You don't know if Juwan Jennings is going to come back. You don't know if the contract situation is playing a role in his in his status right now. The fact that he's not practicing while he deals with a calf injury. If his contract situation were to be resolved, would Juwan Jennings be back on the practice field? That is a question that we can't answer right now. And again, I've said it on the podcast. If I'm Juwan Jennings and I'm dealing with a calf injury, I am not eager to get back on the practice field without my contract situation resolved. And if you're the 49ers, obviously it makes sense not to want to pay Juwan Jennings when you signed him to a deal last offseason. And you don't want to set the precedent of players sitting out and just wanting to get new contracts a year before free agency. So I see both sides of it on the Jennings front. Irrespective of Jennings and the Niners banged up wide receiver room, now they have another running back, another pass catching option. It's not the last 2 years, Brian Robinson Jr. has caught 36 passes and 20 passes. So that's not to say that like he's this receiving threat like Christian McCaffrey is, but at least it's another option out of the backfield to potentially catch passes. Because I think what's going to happen, because the 49ers are so banged up at receiver, you're going to see a lot of two receiver sets, two running backs, two tight ends. You're going to see a lot of big physical offense from the Niners. It's not going to be constantly in 11 personnel, constantly pushing the ball downfield. I think they are going to play a brand that resembles what they did maybe in the early Jimmy Garoppolo days when it was a lot of play action. It was a lot of running game stuff. I think the 49ers kind of have to do that. And in getting Brian Robinson Jr., that's somebody that could allow you to do that. So you have Christian McCaffrey now, who's healthy, who, looks great. Trent Williams said on Thursday in his press conference that Christian McCaffrey looks like the 2023 offensive player of the year type guy. And I've heard the same thing from inside the building, that Christian McCaffrey had an awesome offseason. He looks great, and that he's poised for a great year if he stays healthy. And that's the big if. And to me, it finally looks like the 49ers have insulated themselves from a Christian McCaffrey injury a little bit, in that if you have Brian Robinson Jr. as your number 2 running back behind Christian McCaffrey, and McCaffrey misses any sort of time, you feel a lot better about having an established player, a guy who's been in the league for 3 years. He's not, he's not old, right? Brian Robinson is 26. So I guess maybe that's kind of old in running back years, but this is a former 3rd-round pick from Alabama. This is a guy with pedigree. This is a guy with 570 rushing attempts in the NFL. He scored 15 rushing touchdowns with 5 more receiving touchdowns. He did get shot in 2022. You remember the 50 Cent Many Men video of his introduction. If you haven't seen that, I would suggest going to check that out. It's a pretty cool moment. And as my podcast partner Kyle Madsen pointed out on the Everything app X, he had the Spider-Man meme with Ricky Pearsall and Brian Robinson Jr. The 49ers now have 2 guys on their offense who have both gotten shot and survived robbery attempts, which is just a crazy non-football related thing, but just a wild thing. But yeah, you can't. I think you have to like this move for the 49ers. Because any 49ers observer would say, yeah, their season hinges on Christian McCaffrey's health. I still believe that to be true, but now if Christian McCaffrey is banged up at any point, you have a capable number 2 running back who you can still run an entire offense through, or not through necessarily, but you can still run your entire offense with this guy as your featured running back. And I'd be interested to see, how much of an appetite Kyle Shanahan has to take Christian McCaffrey off the field. Because that's been one of the issues. It's like the Niners will be up by 3 scores in the 4th quarter of a game, and Christian McCaffrey is still getting a bunch of carries. Does Brian Robinson allow you to take some of the load off Christian McCaffrey? I think that'll be interesting to